A lie can begin before you even open your mouth. Your brain often decides to hide the truth a fraction of a second before you realize you're doing it. Not because you're evil, not because you're manipulative, but because somewhere deep inside your mind, a silent calculation has already happened. And that raises a strange question. If lying is supposed to be wrong, why does your brain make it feel so natural? Imagine meeting someone for the first time. They ask how you're doing. You smile and say, I'm good. Maybe you aren't. Maybe you barely slept. Maybe you're worried about money. Maybe you're terrified about tomorrow. But instead of telling the truth, you give the answer almost everyone gives. That tiny lie seems harmless, but it's also the beginning of a much bigger mystery. Because if humans truly hated lying, those little lies wouldn't exist at all. Somehow, your brain has decided that honesty isn't always the safest option. That idea feels uncomfortable until you realize it didn't begin with you. Long before cities existed, before money, before schools or governments, your ancestors lived in small groups where every relationship mattered. One careless sentence could turn friends into enemies. One insult could leave someone without protection. One argument could mean eating alone while predators waited in the dark. In that world, survival wasn't only about being the strongest. It was about staying connected. Yet sometimes telling us the complete truth threatened those connections. So another strategy quietly appeared. Not fighting, not running, simply bending reality. And that tiny change may have helped entire families survive. But if lying helped people stay alive, something even stranger happened next. Children start lying surprisingly young. Long before they understand politics, business, or complicated social rules, many children learn to hide broken toys, deny eating the last cookie, or blame imaginary monsters for the mess they created. Nobody teaches them this. It appears almost automatically. For years, researchers wondered how that was possible. Then they noticed something fascinating. To tell even a simple lie, a child has to imagine another person's mind. They have to think, what does mom believe? What will dad expect? What story makes sense? That means lying isn't only about deception. It's evidence that the brain has become powerful enough to simulate another person's thoughts. In a strange way, every successful lie proves your brain understands someone else. But that creates another puzzle. If lying requires intelligence, why do honest people lie just as often? Picture yourself receiving a birthday gift. You unwrap it. Inside is the ugliest sweater you've ever seen. The person who gave it watches your face with excitement. For 1 second, two truths collide. One says, I hate this. The other says, I don't want to hurt someone I care about. Most people choose the second. Not because the sweater suddenly became beautiful, because kindness sometimes wins over accuracy. That changes everything. Some lies don't protect the liar. They protect someone else's feelings. Psychologists even have a name for them. Prosocial lies. The strange kind of dishonesty that can actually strengthen relationships. But if some lies make relationships stronger, how do we know when lying becomes dangerous? The answer hides inside your body. Imagine you're about to tell a lie that really matters. Your heart speeds up. Your breathing changes. Tiny muscles around your eyes tighten. Your brain suddenly begins juggling two different versions of reality. One is what actually happened. The other is the story you're trying to maintain. Keeping both alive at once takes work. That's why large lies are exhausting. Every new conversation becomes another puzzle. Who knows what? What did I already say? Does this version match the last one? The lie starts demanding attention, and the bigger it grows, the more energy it steals. But here's the surprising part. The body doesn't always react that way. Some people lie without showing obvious stress at all. Why? Because repetition changes everything. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. The first attempt feels impossible. Eventually, your body barely thinks about it. Lying can follow a similar pattern. The more often someone repeats the same story, the more familiar it becomes. Eventually, parts of the brain begin treating the invented version almost like a memory. Not because the event actually happened, because repetition reshapes confidence. And confidence is surprisingly convincing. That's one reason eyewitnesses sometimes get things wrong without realizing it. Memory isn't a perfect recording. It's more like rebuilding a puzzle every time you remember it. Pieces can move, colors can fade, new pieces can sneak in. Sometimes people aren't lying at all. They're simply remembering something that never happened quite the way they believe. That sounds impossible until you notice your own memories. Can you remember exactly what shirt you wore 2 Tuesdays ago? Probably not. Your brain fills gaps constantly. Most of the time, you never notice. But this raises an uncomfortable question. If memory changes, how much of your identity depends on stories you've told yourself for years? Every person carries invisible stories. I'm not good enough. I'm always unlucky. I never give up. Some are true. Some started with a single moment that grew larger every time it was remembered. Eventually, those stories stop feeling like opinions. They feel like facts. The most convincing lies are often the ones we tell ourselves, and they rarely sound like lies. They sound like certainty. But your brain isn't trying to fool you for fun. It's trying to build a world that makes sense. Imagine waking up every morning forced to question every belief you've ever had. Every friendship, every decision, every mistake. Life would become unbearable. So your brain constantly simplifies reality. It edits, organizes, removes contradictions, creates neat stories from messy events. Truth becomes something surprisingly flexible. Not because reality changes, because your brain needs order more than perfect accuracy. And that's where the biggest surprise appears. Humans aren't the only creatures that deceive. Certain birds fake injuries to lure predators away from the nests. Some octopuses change color to imitate dangerous animals. Even tiny insects pretend to be dead until danger passes. Nature has been experimenting with deception for hundreds of millions of years. Humans simply developed the most advanced version. We don't just fool predators, we fool each other. Sometimes for kindness, sometimes for power, sometimes for survival, sometimes without even realizing it. And yet civilization itself depends on something remarkable. Trust. Every time you board a plane, buy food, cross a bridge, or hand someone your credit card, you're making thousands of invisible assumptions that other people are mostly telling the truth. Society doesn't work because nobody lies. It works because most people tell the truth most of the time. Trust is the default. Lies are the exception. Or when that balance disappears, everything else begins to fall apart. So why does every human lie? Because honesty and deception were never opposites fighting inside your brain. They evolved together. One helped you describe reality. The other helped you survive reality. Every conversation you have is shaped by both. Every relationship balances both. Every version of yourself contains both. The strange part isn't that humans lie. The strange part is that despite millions of opportunities to deceive each other every single day, we still wake up expecting the next person to tell us the truth. And maybe that fragile expectation is the most extraordinary story humans have ever managed to believe.